Alright, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is keyboard shortcuts in Adobe After Effects. Okay, so keyboard shortcuts are very useful when editing your footage in Adobe After Effects. It makes you become much more productive and makes editing process very easy and fast. Okay, so just invest just few moments of your time to learn about the keyboard shortcuts so that you can be able to perform very fast, and even editing becomes very easy along the way. To access keyboard shortcuts in Adobe After Effects, all you need to do in Mac, you just come to edit over here and you can see keyboard shortcuts down here. So you just click and you can see everything just like the way it is in Adobe Premiere Pro. Everything is just listed. You can hold down the command key to see whatever is allowed over here, or you can see from the keyboard whatever is allowed and whatever is not allowed, or what any feature does for your editing process. And you can search for any feature from here. Okay, you can just come over here to search for any feature that you are trying to target. You can check the command key over here, and all these features you'll be able to see what do they do to your editing process. So you can just check on any, and you can just search for any feature, any command of your choice. For example, you can search for delete, which is usually clear. Okay, you can see it clear over here, and you can easily select. You can just use clear on your keyboard, or you can do forward delete on your keyboard also if you are using Mac or thereabout, and you can press on delete to delete as well. Okay, for you to add any shortcut key, you can just come over here, for example on this clear, and just hit on anywhere, and you can just add any letter. For example, I can add the letter D to this to be able to delete at any given point. So I just added D, and you can see it has added. So once I press on OK, it's going to take D as a delete button. Whenever I click on D, it's going to delete a particular clip that I'm working on. So let's have an example of it. So on this clip, assuming I'm working on this clip, and when I press the delete button, okay, so assuming I select this clip, whenever I press the delete button, it's going to delete this particular key for me. Whenever I press the letter D, okay, the letter D is going to delete the clip directly for me. So this is the function of the basic function of the keyboard shortcuts. There are lots of them. There are many you can use to create your own shortcuts to be able to fasten your work or thereabout. The most interesting ones that I use generally in my editing process are, for example, instead of you to come over and click on this arrow to have the transform, and then click on the transform to have all these features, I usually have the shortcut keys to enable them. For example, I use the letter S to enable the scaling transform. I use the letter S, and you see it brings us this scaling transform. Okay, I can hit the letter T for opacity, and I can hit the letter R for rotation. Okay, you can see I can hit letter R for rotation, and I can hit letter A for anchor point. Okay, these are just default keyboard shortcuts, but I find them quite useful and helpful whenever you are editing your footage. So letter S can bring in the scale, letter T can bring in the opacity, letter R can bring in the rotation, and letter A can bring in the anchor point. And if you want to put on some of them at the same time, for example, you want to put anchor point and maybe opacity, you just have to hold down the shift key and press the letter T, and it's going to put anchor point and opacity at the same time. And if you want to put maybe rotation also to this, you just press the shift key and please press on R, and then you can have them all at the same time. Okay, so another keyboard shortcut that I use is letter U, which I use to solo any keyframe that I have or anything that I'm working on in terms of the properties. Okay, so for example, if I press on letter U, everything goes, and specifically if I'm working on the scale and I press on letter U, it goes, and I press on letter U again. For example, if I'm working on scaling and I added some scale, if I have others, for example rotation, and then maybe I have opacity, and once I press on letter U, it's going to solo everything except the one that I'm working on, which is scaling at this point. Okay, it's just going to bring in scale that I'm working on. It's very handy when you have too many transform features you're working on. It's going to hide on the other ones and just show you the one that you're working on. So letter U can be very handy as it solo all the other keyframes you're working on. Another one I usually use is the letter V to always return down to the selection tool. For example, if I'm typing something, and I always want to at this point want to go back to the selection tool so that I'll be able to move my clip or make a selection. I can always press on the letter V to go back to the selection tool, and you can see now I can hold and drag and move around very easily. With the letter V, you can return back to the selection tool. Alright, so another thing is I can hit the command T to enable the text. For example, I can just hit the command and letter T to enable the text tool, and I can type anything I want. Okay, so you can see I can type anything with the command T. It's very useful. And the pen tool, I can enable it also with the letter G. Say I return back to the selection tool, I can press on the G to enable the pen tool, and you can see I can be able to draw at any given point. I can draw anything. Okay, maybe I draw this polygon and I can have it for myself. Okay, so at any given point you may always decide to draw any shape of your choice. Letter G can enable the pen tool, so you'll be able to do all that very easily. Okay, so the letter Q, once I press on the letter Q, can enable the rectangle tool, and you'll be able to draw rectangles or circles or thereabout. Okay, any given point. So when you enable the letter Q, you can always come over here and you can see you can click on this ellipse tool. When you click and hold, you have the option to be able to enable the rectangle tool or the rounded rectangle tool or the ellipse tool or the polygon tool or the star tool. You can enable any one of them from here and you'll be able to use it very nicely. So you can see right now it is the star tool. You can do that anywhere, and you can do also other things. So just hold down the star tool and you can enable the polygon tool, and you can draw just like so very nicely. Okay, so this enables you to draw different kind of shapes. So basically this is just the most important ones that I use in terms of the basic editing, but you're free to go ahead and customize yours according to your liking. I have shown you how to customize the keyboard shortcuts, but the basic ones that I use are the transform features, the U for the solo, and the V for the selection tool, the command T for the text tool, the G for the pen tool, and the Q for the rectangle tool or thereabout. Okay, so just feel free to give it a try and try to see what you can change to have the best shortcut keys to be able to edit very fast. Please try to learn about the shortcut keys because it's very useful and handy, and it makes your editing process pretty fast. So that does it for this tutorial. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.